Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and we are not building a bowl today. We are actually building a table. And before we start the video, I just want to say, this is probably my favorite table that I've ever built. I've built a couple of tables before in the past, but this to me is my favorite table that I've made. But let's get into the video and see what we're doing to get this off the ground. So right off the bat, you can see here that I'm just struggling with my planer. It sits in the corner most of the time unless I use it for like table building, and unless I give it some warm-up passes with some wood, it usually jams up on me, and I have a little bit of an issue, as you saw there earlier in the video. But essentially what we're doing is we're just taking a bunch of 2x4 blanks that we picked up for Project Wood at Lowe's, running them through the planer initially, and that's going to be kind of the base for what we're going to do. And then we got to take the jointer over here and flatten out the edges. So I got a jointer last year. Actually, was it this year? It's been relatively soon that I've had this planer, but this has been a great addition to my workshop here. It allows me to flatten out these junk pieces of wood. If you've ever gone to Lowe's or Home Depot and tried to buy any like pieces of wood to do projects with, you can tell even if you get a good piece that it's still kind of wonky. It's still kind of, not the best quality. So you really have to take your time with both the jointer and the planer just to get everything nice and even before you actually start your glue up projects. So initially I just went with 4 boards. I built this table for somebody at work that has always asked me for a table, but for some reason I just never got around to building them one. I've built several tables on the channel. You can go back and watch those videos, but I wanted to do something different because this person kind of has been asking for a while, and I didn't know initially what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something different that I hadn't done before for this person. So initially I went with 4 of these. I did the glue up, put them in the vices. A couple of weeks later, I just had stuff going on. I couldn't get back to it directly. But I looked at it and I'm like, this looks more like a surfboard than it does any start for a table. So I went back to Lowe's, picked up another piece of wood, and just decided to do another plank. So instead of doing 4 or 5, I think I did 6 on this one. But essentially doing the same thing, making sure that we plane it out real nice and flat as compared with the others, and then we'll take it over to the jointer and do another glue up with it. But this little joiner here is just a Project Hobbyist jointer. It's not like one of those giant industrial ones like you'll see on Blacktail Studio, but maybe if we get to that level someday, we can maybe get a bigger one. But for right now, this one does the job relatively well. So then we just come back and do the same thing, gluing up the other pieces here, and then we'll let that rest for about another week or so and just allow everything to kind of glue up. And we're just using regular wood glue from Gorilla Glue, not sponsored. Could use a sponsorship though, but everything's going relatively smooth up until this point. This is one of my favorite projects. I think I added 2 boards. Okay, so there we go. So a couple of weeks later, again, take it out of the vise, and it looks better. It doesn't look like a surfboard. It kind of looks like an actual little entryway table. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's wavy and wonky still a little bit, and letting the wood kind of settle. It had rained, the moisture got in the wood, and it kind of warped a little bit, so not everything came out as flush as I wanted to. So you can see this giant gap here in some of the pieces. So I'll have to go back and address that because I don't want the wood to like explode or come apart, because that would kind of really suck. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking a tip from Blacktail Studio, and I'm going to fill it on the bottom initially with some putty paste, and then we're going to take some black epoxy to fill those portions up, which I think is good. If you want to see real table making, go watch Blacktail Studio. That channel is amazing. Real good projects coming out of that. Professional, I should say, projects coming out of that. But if you're interested in just hobbyist and a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, keep watching the video. So we're taking a little bit of just tabletop Total Boat epoxy, also not sponsored. But hey, Total Boat, if you're listening, give me a sponsorship that I haven't earned probably, but that would still be awesome. But anyway, just mixing up about 4 ounces, and then we're going to take our Black Diamond pigment, and then we're going to mix that up in a cup, and then we're going to pour it into those little cracks and just get everything kind of just adhesed so that I know that it's not going to splay apart. So I was, kind of just really just pouring that in there, making sure that that epoxy got in there real nice and deep so that it doesn't come apart on me. And there's obviously no supports on the bottom, so this is just a complete glue job here. But I'm just pouring everything in there, getting that out. So the bad thing about not having an industrial planer, I've got a pretty good sized planer, but there's still wonkiness and everything in there. So the belt sander, I think, did a lot of the work here. Essentially what I'm doing here is just planing everything down. Yes, I could just get a planer and do it, but I find the sander for this particular project just to be just as good. And I might look into doing that a little bit later, getting like a larger hand plane or an electric planer. I really don't like electric planers. I've seen some other woodworkers use those. Not a big fan, but that will be something I'll look at a little bit later. But this is working relatively easy to smooth and plane everything out nice and flat. And you can see there the different colors in the wood. You can see how it's working. And at the end of it, I was really happy how it turned out doing this particular technique. So here I am getting a little bold because the edges of the board aren't even. And I was like, you know what? Let's get a little, crafty. You take out our skill saw and make everything nice and flat. And that's essentially what I did on both sides, which was super surprising that worked out as well. And then I'm going to do my classic technique of just burning the wood. So this is just boring pine wood. And if you've seen me do any amount of projects on this channel, you know that I work a lot with pine because it's cheap and you can do different things with it. And I think the burning technique looks really good. So if you're not a fan of that, I'm sorry, not sorry, kind of, sort of. But I think it looks really good. So we end up burning all the edges of the wood here on all sides, and it looks really cool, really happy. So this is where the real work comes in, and the reason why I was such a big fan of this table is because, again, I kind of stole this idea from Blacktail Studio. He did like a table out of a piece of a log, and he had a giant burr on like a Dremel or some kind of tool like that, and he poked these little holes in some burnt wood, and it looked really cool. And I was like, you know what, I could also do something like that. So I was like, you know what, we're going to try to do something different for this person and their table. Why not just, try that technique? And this technique looks really cool. I really like this. And if you guys have been watching my YouTube shorts, you saw several portions of the project and build. And some people were big fans of it, and a lot of them weren't. But, man, I think this looks really cool. I think this technique looks really awesome. It is tedious nonetheless. My hand is vibrating, and my, lungs are getting filled with dust over here. But I think it looks really, really cool. It just takes a long time. It took me a couple of weeks to kind of get this done, but I really like this technique. I think it looks really cool. It gives it a good texture. You get the good burnt and the pine boringness all in one. So I think it looks really cool. And here I am just finishing it up here. You can see that we're almost done. And I thought I didn't initially intend this, but I was going to do the whole table, but then I thought about how cool a transition would be between where the wood was just dark and it transitions into these little craters or whatever. But that was an accidental artistic decision on my part, and I think it looks really cool. I love how this table looks. Again, this is my favorite table that I've built. I think it looks really awesome. And also, back to the YouTube Shorts thing, I'm going to be putting out a lot more of that kind of content, so I feel like I get a little bit better engagement on my YouTube Shorts than I do my long form. But either way, long form, short form, appreciate everybody, every gal that's been watching. Really appreciate everybody's support and everything. But this project is coming to almost its end. We're just taking the router and just routing out the edges here. We're just getting everything nice and even and square. I think this looks really cool as well. And then we did the bottom of it as well, just getting everything nice and round instead of having that pouring kind of square shape to it. But I love how this table turned out. So then all I did was seal it with some tabletop epoxy, and you can see here we're just brushing that in. But man, I think this looks really good. And this didn't take much time. We did the top of it, let it sit for 24 hours, and then we're going to flip it and essentially do the same thing on the back as well. But here I am just cleaning up the edges, and I realized, hey, put it on some risers so that the epoxy doesn't melt to the bottom. And here we are, nearly done with it. And then we did the bottom of it as well. Looks really, really good, and I'm really happy how this turned out. I'm so proud of myself. I don't care what anybody thinks. It looks awesome. And then we built, or we didn't build, but we ordered some different table legs for this one. Legs I've never used before, and I gotta say, I was really happy how these turned out as well. They have adjusters on the bottom, and they can unscrew apart, which is good, so the person can move the table a little bit easier. But really happy how these legs look, a little something different. And we're just going to put those on here. They come with coasters and risers that you can put on, and then the screw comes on the top, and then you can just attach them after you adhese them to the table. But really happy how that turned out as well. I'm definitely going to do this project again in the future. I loved making this table. One of my most favorite tables that I've ever built. I know I can't say that enough, but thanks for everybody that's been watching on YouTube Shorts. Thanks to everybody that's kind of supported what we've been doing over here. I like making those short videos as well. I think it's a little bit more engaging, and you can do different things with music and stuff like that. So, sorry not sorry if people don't like my music selections on some of those videos. It's stuff that I like, and I think it's always important to do things that you like to do. So in spite of people not liking or not being a fan of this table, I liked making it. That's all that matters. And here's the finished product. I think it looks really cool. You can see the craters and little burnt edges. The epoxy makes that wood pop, and that grain looks a lot cooler. I love how this looks. This is probably my favorite project that I've done. And I know I say that a lot, but I think this looks really, really cool. And you can see the transition between the wood and where the craters start. But overall, I'm really happy how this turned out. Can't say enough good things about this one. Really enjoyed making this. It took a while. It took a month or two, and it's been 1,000 degrees in Texas, so that definitely was an issue as well. But the legs look good on it. It looks like almost like something you might actually buy at a store, kind of, sort of, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I hope you guys liked it. More YouTube Shorts are coming. It's hopefully going to cool down here in Texas a little bit so we can get more projects done. But anyway, hope you liked it. Hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.